Good evening, and welcome to the 38th ICT Open Forum, courtesy the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. We fondly call them TAT. My name is Wendell Etienne, and I'll be your guide through this evening's discussion as we explore the theme, Digital Terrestrial Television, Embrace the Future of Television. We have a fantastic panel assembled for the discussion, and at one point we will engage all our viewers as we explore this theme. Let's meet the panelists. On my extreme right, to the left of your screens, we have Mr. Nicholas Sabga. He's the Managing Director at Standard Distributors Limited, which is part of the Anser-McAl group of companies. He has over a decade experience at Anser-McAl Limited, notably within the media sector from 2011 to 2018, and specializes in brand development and product expansion, having driven growth for various media brands and achieved operational excellence at Gideon Media Limited. Nicholas, welcome.
Thank you.
Next to Nicholas, we have Mr. Gideon Edwards. He started in the media industry through the Anser-McAl Champions Graduate Program, where he was placed in Gideon Media Limited. One of the notable projects Gideon led during the program was the redesign of Trinidad and Tobago Guardian newspaper in 2018. This is the current design of the newspaper. After the two-year program, Gideon decided to reside in Operations Engineering Division of Guardian Media Limited, holding various technical roles at different seniority levels. Presently, he functions in the role of Chief Engineer. Gideon, welcome. Next to Gideon, we have the Telecommunications' very own Executive Officer, Technology and Engineering. He has over 20 years of leadership experience in technical and general management roles in the telecommunications sector for both regulators and operators across various markets in the region, including Trinidad and Tobago, Curacao, Barbados, and the Windward Islands. Kurleigh, welcome.
Thank you, Wendell.
And rounding off the panel this evening, we have online Dr. Claire Grant. She has over 20 years of executive leadership in media. Dr. Grant is a seasoned expert in digital broadcast, print, and OTT platforms. She spearheaded Jamaica's digital switchover to ATSC 3.0, making it the first country in the world in the transition from analog TV. A strategic thinker, Dr. Grant excels at developing sustainable business models for media in volatile markets. She serves as Vice Chair of ATSC's Caribbean Implementation Team and sits on its Business Advisory Committee, where she shapes global next-gen TV standards with insights from emerging economies. Dr. Grant, welcome to you. Thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Reverend.
So this is going to be a discussion where we're going to toss everyone in. It's an open discussion, a free and frank exploration of the theme, Digital Terrestrial Television, or DTT. But to kick us off, let me toss to Dr. Grant. We're not going to take anything for granted. Dr. Grant, what exactly is DTT?
DTT, Digital Terrestrial Transmission, that really refers to the over-the-air transmission of television signals. So currently, in most of the Caribbean, this is being done using analog technology, which is old technology. We might say dying and probably best said dead technology, because there's no new development in analog technology for over 2 decades. Everything is gone digital. And digital transmission over the air is giving you better quality picture, better quality sound. It is more efficient in the use of spectrum and provides a lot of new opportunities for broadcasters and consumers by utilizing digital terrestrial transmission. So this is you getting your signal still over the air using an antenna, but it's now a digital signal.
Thank you. So I'm coming back here to the panel in studio, and I want to ask the Chief Engineer, what is required to take advantage of what Dr. Grant has just described?
All right. So what is required to take advantage from the viewer side? We need to have a receiver or a decoder to decode the signal to display it on the TV. On the broadcaster side, we need a new system for transmission because the analog system is different from the digital system. So we need to upgrade our transmission system and upgrade the user decoding system as well.
So I think we have set a very clear platform. We know what it is. We know what is required. We're going to stretch a little more. Dr. Grant, could you tell us a little bit about your experience having pioneered, and I say that, and I speak to you as the collective, having pioneered that movement from analog to digital?
Well, it is something that digital itself is not new. So the current standard that we're looking at, which AHSC 3.0, is the most advanced, the most recent iteration of a digital standard. So you've had digital standards in Europe as well as in North America. What you'd have had in the region is ATSC 1.0. But 3 is better than all that currently exists in the world as far as digital is concerned. So in doing this transition, as Gideon indicated, you have to have a plan for what is required at your television station. You're going to be having to change workflows to be a digital workflow. That means an upgrade of a lot of the equipment, assuming you hadn't done that kind of change within your system before. And then you're also going to have to do changes to the equipment on your tower, your transmitters, and your antennas that send the signals out to people to get it at their home. And as Gideon indicated, you now also need to have your audience being able to receive the signal, which is either with a television set that has a tuner, or you're going to, in the interim, and this is very important, in the interim, a set-top box until all televisions that you will go and purchase will have the tuner. Now, in preparing for that, it does require, it's a very expensive process, depending on what kind of model is being used. In some circumstances, a broadcaster might have the full responsibility for everything that has to do with this transmission. In other markets, sometimes the broadcaster no longer gets involved in the technical part of the transmission and is just concentrating on the creation of content and the workflow within their system. So it varies. But critically, you do need to have a sense of coming to appreciate the timing of the availability of the signal and the ability of the audience to access the signal with set-top boxes and televisions.
Nicholas, we just heard a bit about content. Is there a business case for the broadcaster? And I would like to hear both sides of the divide as well. The broadcaster having to transition into what is essentially the future, and what are the opportunities that the broadcaster can take advantage of to satisfy the customer?
Well, I think it's important to note what advantages does DTT bring to the forefront in terms of data collection. And in Trinidad, I believe we have about 85% internet penetration at the home. Is that correct?
Yeah, more than.
So therefore, we are able to collect the data, and that creates an advantage to know, well, this is what the viewership is. And when you know what the viewership is, then you can sell that to the advertiser. So it creates an ability to have data that people can actually use to shop, so to say. So the advertisers could say, hey, this is something we know that people are looking at. So maybe that's good content. So it narrows in on what is good content and what isn't. And it will allow broadcasters and content creators to get feedback as to what will make them better, continuous improvement. So it will definitely be good from that perspective, and advertising dollars are always good to fund an industry. You know, it will be great for them.
And the digital space, one could argue, is a fairly unregulated space at times. And I think it's only useful that we have a conversation with the regulator about that space. What's the role of the regulator as we see literally an industry move forward from one form of technology to the other?
So I guess in this piece, when we talk about the transition, well, firstly, let me start off by saying good night to all the viewers. Thank you for that question, Wendell. So I think as we are embarked on this journey of the adoption of digital terrestrial television, DTT, we as the regulator have a sort of non-traditional role, not so much as the regulator, but more over as a facilitator or even perhaps an enabler. Nicholas started to touch on the benefits to consumers, one being data collection, others being the quality improvement. As Claire was speaking to, the analog technology and dead analog technology is limited in the quality it can provide to consumers. So analog can only ever deliver a standard definition picture to the viewers, right? As we transition to digital can accommodate better quality. It can accommodate high definition viewing. It can accommodate 4K resolution viewing. So when we are aware of the benefits, and I just spoke about the benefits of quality, there's benefits in terms of programming information. Again, in the analog world, you don't have that ability to, in free-tier analog world. So those who have cable TV, they're familiar with being able to pull up a programming guide to see what's available, to plan. While you're watching one show, you can look at the guide and see what else is going on. That's not available in the analog broadcast world today. In the digital world, it is readily available. That's what the digital world is set up for. So with the improvements in quality and the improvements of experience for the consumer, and we as the regulator being aware of this improvement in quality being available to consumers, if the broadcast industry can transition to digital, we see ourselves firstly as an enabler. We want to ensure that we can partner, we can collaborate, not only with our broadcasters, but the other members of the value chain in this broadcast industry. We have Nicholas here representing standard distributors. They form a critical part of this value chain in terms of ensuring that consumers can get the equipment, whether it is on a TV that can receive ATSC 3.0 signals, or getting that set-top box, which Claire referenced, that will receive the ATSC 3 signal and transmit it to your existing television. So, we are collaborating with all of the various members of the value chain, the retailers, distributors, the broadcasters, the, government agencies, and so on and so forth, to ensure that we embark upon this transition to digital terrestrial television holistically, ensure that consumers get access to this, ensure that the broadcasters will be able to deliver on sustainable business models and revive the broadcast industry. So there are a number of benefits that we hear, when we sit back as the regulator, we see that this transition, this journey would enable, and therefore we see ourselves as a facilitator of that. But of course, and you touched on an important point in your introduction, talking about the digital space being unregulated. Obviously, we also have to ensure that there are certain rules that are followed, right? So as we embark upon this transition, we need to ensure that free-to-air television remains available. In other words, in our broadcaster transitions, they continue to make their signal freely available. We need to ensure that when they do that transition, the benefits, the quality improvements that I spoke about are indeed realized. So those are the kind of, requirements that we would have to establish. And as we embark upon this transition, we would work with the various stakeholders to ensure that those benefits are realized in a sustainable manner.
Sounds pretty good. Gideon, are we ready?
We are. We are. And when I say we are, I mean, in Trinidad, we have the expertise. Of course, the dollars and cents, that's the sensitive area, but there's the will. So I would say the readiness is there, definitely.
And if I may?
Yeah.
You asked the question if we are ready. One of the things, as part of this collaborative effort that we've embarked on with the broadcasters, is we've been able to establish a trial system, a trial ATSC 3.0 system. So this is a participative effort that the broadcasters, together with the regulator, have been able to establish. So we currently have it operational right now. We have it testing. We are using it to ensure that, as you say, we're ready for this transition, that our broadcasters get access to the tools, to the platform. They're able to understand the technology better, and we're even able to educate and to show folks what are the benefits are coming. So I agree with Gideon, yes, we are ready, but we are also putting the things in place to ensure that when we get there, when we actually reach there, we're in a position to leverage all of the benefits.
Dr. Grant, where are we in terms of readiness from a Caribbean or regional perspective?
That's an interesting question that does, we tend to think of the Caribbean as a single region, which it is, but the truth of the matter is that all of the islands have different experiences, they have a different capacity, different models of television. Trinidad is probably the most interesting, having 4 free-to-air channels, 2 are government, 2 are private. You will go into other islands and it's all private or it's all government. And depending on that kind of structure, it's going to require a different type of investment model, right? So you then also have the geography to think about. Jamaica is larger in size, and the geography is also pretty complicated. That structure is going to require somewhere in excess of 20 towers to give you island-wide coverage with the same type of penetration that the analog signal now has. Trinidad is very different. Trinidad is smaller and is actually only needing 5. You then go to Barbados. Barbados probably will only need 1. They currently only have 1. And it's important to understand that it's not a one-size-fits-all across the region. What I do think is a one-size-fits-all reality across the region is if you don't switch, you're out of broadcast TV. So that decision is almost being made for you. You cannot continue to sustain analog networks for much longer because all of the areas across the world that manufacture broadcasting equipment are all gone digital. So that kind of decision to switch has almost been made for us. I think where we are now, just today, I was looking at a number of territories that are going across to the National Association of Broadcasters, NAB show later in April. And I think a lot of our territories, people are beginning to take a look and to make an assessment. It's a very expensive venture, and therefore people have to plan as to how it is going to happen. I just want to add one other benefit that wasn't really spoken about in what was said so far. One is free, obviously, but the other is that you will have the ability as a broadcaster to have multiple channels, more channels than what you have now. In the most classic case, the spectrum that would be given should give you 6 HD channels, but you can do a different mix. You could get 2 HD channels and probably 6 or 8 SD channels. And that's very important. That's very important to understanding the change that you're going to see in the business models for broadcasters across the region. So going back to your specific question, I think the region is in readiness. People are investigating what is required. You've seen Jamaica made the move in 2022. Trinidad has made its move in 2023 and is fairly advanced. And there are conversations going on across the region. Some announcements have not yet been made yet, but we know that conversations are taking place as everybody is looking to modernize to the most efficient type of broadcasting that's required for our populations, because you need to have access to information in a free way.
Nicholas, we heard that capacity of multiple channels. What direct benefits, what can the broadcaster, how can the broadcaster use that benefit, and what can they bring to the market as a result of it?
The most immediate thing that comes to mind, to be honest with you, is when you have events that warrant multiple broadcasting. It's very difficult to produce that quantity of content. So Olympics is the one that, you know, off the top of my head comes to mind. There's so much happening, and I don't think we in Trinidad have really experienced, apart from once when they did it on multiple stations, all that the Olympics has to offer. There's just so much being generated at any given point in time. So that would be one of the things that I think would be truly great. But I think in general, the ability to receive HD content directly home to your television is a great thing. And the good news is that, you know, if I swing it down to retailers as standard would be concerned, is currently there are televisions that offer ATSC3. LG in particular, they actually offer the entire range comes with ATSC3 ready. Some Samsung do, and we would be looking into what set-top boxes, and we will go to what consumers want, and whatever the market demands, we will gravitate to. The ATSC3 televisions do come at a slightly higher price, but we will be working on that to get that to an affordable range, as we always do, from our perspective, to give the consumer what they want. We have no choice. That's what they want. So the question I'd ask is the consumer ready? Is this something that they're interested in? I'm sure Raul would be able to answer that. I'm sure they've done a study. Do they want it? And because I think internet penetration is so high now, maybe people just turn on Netflix off their smart TV, because most TVs are smart. We don't sell many, how do I say, unsmart TVs now, right?
The older models.
Yeah, the older models, and now it's one remote for everything, right? And everybody's like, it's easy. And that's what this is about, ease and convenience. What do people want? So that's what we would gravitate to.
Should our senior citizens be scared of this development? And I'm putting seniors there. Of course, I'm being a bit sarcastic as well. But the reality is we have members in our communities, not just seniors, but in sometimes rural, sometimes even urban communities, who do not readily embrace technology. How difficult an experience would this be for them?
In my view, I wouldn't say it would be difficult at all. I mean, as Dr. Grant mentioned, the decision has basically been made for us due to the obsolescence of the analog technology. So we have to move in this direction. And on the user side, as Nicholas mentioned, there are TVs within the markets that are ATSC 3.0 ready. And for those of us who already have TVs that do not have that capability, via the set-top box, we can make them ready. And the set-top box is an easy installation, plug and play. You know, so it's similar to the cable subscription service providers. You know how they will come and install their version of such. The set-top box is similar, plug and play, receive HD content, better quality, and our senior citizens and those who may not be as open to the change will be happy.
So it's a throwback to what they used to do.
I was just about to go there.
They just turn on a TV and there's the channel channels that they wanted.
Basically.
It might be easier then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it premature, and I'm tossing this out to everyone, is it premature to even begin a discussion on exporting media content, given this transition of the industry? Is that something we can explore?
What I think, Wendell, is important, and you know, there's a theory, you know, build it and they will come, or do you plan in a way that says here is what the people want? So one of the things that I believe the multiple channels is going to do, you're looking at a free tier having multiple channels, not on the volume like what you'd see on cable. You're not talking about having hundreds or dozens of channels, but you're going to be able to plan strategically around content that kind of becomes niche. And so you continue to have a general format station, but for example, we have here, you do have sign language here on this for the hearing impaired. You might have a channel that is specifically dedicated to that audience and is doing things and is having content that is directly for that audience, right? For example, religion, I think right across the region, it's a big deal. There are some people who will watch a religious channel, and it would be good for them to be able to watch a religious channel with content that is culturally relevant to them. So if you think about it, this possibility of having channels that allow for more content is going to, over time, spawn the development of independent production in a way that we probably would not have seen before, because airtime did not allow you to have these broader conversations. And it's also important for you to understand you are going to be able to produce more channels with this single transmitter. It's not going to be costing you more from the television station perspective. And I think that is very, very important. The other thing that I wanted to bear in mind is that we need to understand the future of what this is about. I have seen phones that have the tuner for the ATSC signal. I have seen and held in hand tablets, iPads that have the signal. In Detroit 2 years ago, they are testing the signal going to television sets in cars. So pretty much you're going to be understanding that over time, it is not going to be just limited to you seeing the signal in your house, right? You're going to have devices that allow you to go around and pick that signal up free to air. And that is going to become a major game changer in terms of how people access content.
Let me go back to the regulator. The regulator, you're facilitated this discussion. Is there a role that the regulator can play beyond this evening as an enabler to identify those potential jobs, markets, opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that, as we've embarked on this journey of the transition to digital terrestrial television, one of the principles of this journey has been collaboration and consultation and continued outreach to additional stakeholders. We currently have 3 formal working groups established, one a technical working group. Gideon and myself, we're members of that technical working group. We have another working group, the finance working group, and we have another working group called the public relations working group. And all these working groups meet regularly and constantly, having discussions along the lines that you're referring to. What are the opportunities? What can we leverage? What can we explore? What other stakeholders we need to bring in? One of the efforts of the finance and public relations working groups, they've actually scheduled a meeting next week, Friday, the 4th of April, 2025, a meeting with the retailer and distributor industry. So they're going to bring all of these folks in a room together with the broadcasters. One of the things we're going to be doing in that room is, one, I spoke about, we have a trial system set up. So we'll be now showcasing the technology to all the retailers and distributors, showing them that, hey, this ATSC3 is not just a talk shop that we're having, on a talk show at night. It's here, it's real, and these are the features to be able to demonstrate the capabilities and so on to the key stakeholders. So as we have these continued discussions, as ideas are born, we take them back in. And if we have to meet with additional, stakeholder groups to explore a new business opportunity, we're happy to do so. One of the things when we launched the trial back in December is we had a couple consultants who've been doing ATSC3 deployments across the US. So they came in and they actually did training sessions with the broadcasters, showcasing to them some of the opportunities that ATSC3 can offer. They showcase some of the data collection that Nicholas spoke to, and they showcase a lot of the other niches and opportunities that they can get into. So yes, absolutely, to answer your question, I guess I gave you a very long yes.
Which we appreciate. We do appreciate.
But the answer is absolutely yes. We all about that discussion, those collaborations, opening the doors to all the various stakeholders. Another thing that we do, to take your point, and Claire and I, Dr. Grant and I, the discussions we've been having. So Dr. Grant, she's the vice chair of the Caribbean implementation team. So every 2 weeks, we have a call where we get on that call to speak about common relevant topics and opportunities. One of the opportunities that Dr. Grant has been championing is the development of an app, a broadcast application, right? That can be provided to broadcast consumers across the Caribbean, a common broadcast application that could help with providing relevant, targeted emergency information that we need to be aware of in the region. So those are the kind of, and then of course, even to make that app available, we need developers, right? We need testers, we need researchers. So absolutely, to your point about where are the new jobs, where are the new opportunities, those discussions are happening and they will continue to happen. And we are happy, you know, as the regulator to be part of the ecosystem that's existing and the discussions that we're having, both locally and across the wider region. And when I say the wider region, I'm not just talking about the Caribbean, but even in partnership with ATSC, which is a North American standards body. So we continue to have those discussions.
Now, you mentioned a very key word there in ecosystem. We have a very key player in that ecosystem, and this may probably be one of the most controversial questions. Is this signaling the end of cable TV? Nicholas, I see you lean back there, boy.
Sure, you go ahead.
In my view, Dr. Grant is laughing. In my view, I would say it won't. Yes. I mean, as Dr. Grant mentioned, cable, there are multiple options, multiple channels. The free-to-air configuration, we have a lesser number, you know, so in my view, I would say it won't kill the cable subscription, at least immediately or in the medium term. In the long term, who knows? You know, based on how technology is advancing, but right now, no, in my view.
Yeah. I need to jump in on that one because, of course, cable operators.
Exactly.
We regulate them as well. Yes.
I did toss it out to everyone.
So I can't let that one just go. But no, I want to say categorically, we do not see this as by any means the death of cable TV. I think Nicholas said the word there about different market segments, right? I think there are going to be market segments that will still continue to consume cable TV. I could tell you, at home there's no way I could not have HGTV available at home. HGTV is a staple in my house, right? So I will continue to subscribe to cable TV because the bigger boss, she needs to watch her HGTV when she, at evenings and so on and so forth. However, there are consumers who primarily just watch news, right? Or probably just watch news and sports. They just want to see, a football game and, a local football game, a regional football game and news. And they may not necessarily need an entire cable subscription. So for those folks who that is their viewing habit, and I think Nicholas talked about it, where there's streaming service options available. So if you're a streaming service guy, but you just need to have access to live streaming TV to catch your news, to catch the primetime talk show, talk programs or the morning show programs, free-to-air can do it for you. And what free-to-air will offer to you will be an option to get access to that content in an affordable way at a high quality, right? However, for those who need to continue to subscribe to ESPN to watch Premier League football ain't gonna come on free-to-air just so, right? So if you are a Premier League fanatic, which, as you know, in Trinidad,
we have quite a few.
I mean, I said Premier League, I should just say football in general, because La Liga is a big one as well. True. And I have some friends here, they will say, what happened? You only know Premier League? So, so if you are a football fanatic, Champions League, La Liga, Premier League, that is going to be, the home for you is going to be cable TV. You're going to still continue to access your cable TV to get that content.
And I definitely think you're right. The market, there's certain demographic that just like the ability to flick through channels.
Yes.
And sort of go to Discovery and that sort of stuff. They're so used to it, and people gravitate to what they're used to. I think also I want to put a plug here for video on demand, which this does allow if, the right box is gotten from the viewer, because we live in a day and age where we can be spoiled a little bit to get that video on demand. So I don't have the luxury of 7 o'clock being my time anymore. That's, my family time, my children time. So therefore, now you can get that catch-up time. Or if you're driving to the office, you can turn on the morning show, the morning brew. Shameless plug for you in the morning with JW. You have the ability to get into that afterwards. And I think video on demand is what the consumer wants, and we need to give that to them.
Yes.
And meet them where they want it. I think there's an opportunity.
For those of you just joining us, this is the ICT's 38th edition, courtesy the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, and we are having quite an engaging discussion on digital terrestrial television, the future of television. Dr. Grant, I want you to share with us some of the concerns that would have been expressed through your experience as we transition into this new phase of broadcasting.
Well, I think the greatest challenge and concern, and rightly so, has to be how does the viewer transition? You know, we were talking a little bit about that. You've spoken about older folk. How are they going to adapt to it? Will they adapt to it? Can they afford it? In other words, is there going to be support for people who are going to need that set-top box? Is going to be support to help them get it? What's the plan, or are they going to be left behind? There is a lot of conversation around how does the viewer transition with this transition, and I think that's consistent across all markets. I don't think it's unique to us. What's important to note is that in other markets, when the first digital transition took place, the first movement from analog to digital, this is in Europe and North America, there actually was an investment to support the viewer transition, right? And that happened because at that time, what was done was that there was a spectrum sale. So broadcaster spectrum was sold off to telecoms and other people who had other use for the spectrum. And that money went back into the actual digital transition. Some of the money actually went to the broadcasters in some markets, and a lot of it went into coupons and stuff that helped the viewer. So that's a significant question for us in the region. Are we going to help the viewers transition? And it becomes a kind of catch-22 situation for the broadcaster, because the broadcaster transition, have the signal out there, and the audience is not able to get it, right? So that is a very important part of how you think about it, what you're going to do, because the longer the broadcaster takes to transition fully, he is going to have to keep both an analog and a digital signal up. Another benefit, Gideon would be able to speak to it, is that the digital transmission is, the energy efficiency is way superior to analog. So you really want to make that transition quickly so that you can switch off your analog. But of course, you can't switch off your analog until you have carried across viewers. I think that's the biggest concern, the biggest issue. The other thing that is coming to bear now, I'm not sure where Trinidad is with this, and Gideon, you can probably speak to it, has to do with the change in the technology means that the type of resources, human resources that you need to keep the system up is very different from what you had before. You essentially need, on the technical side, you need a broadcast engineer that has an IP mindset. So your IP mindset people don't necessarily have broadcast experience, and the broadcast period people don't have the IP mindset. Now that is going to be super critical to finding that resource, training that resource. And my experience is that the earlier markets get to have an understanding that they need to get that in place, the better it's going to be for them, as opposed to getting into the system and they're like, okay, I don't have the correct set of people to keep the system up. So those two, I think, are the most critical elements that are there. We spoke about content before. Content is important. Thinking around how are you going to create content. Nicholas has spoken about it. Anybody that's in the TV business knows that creating 24 hours of content for a channel is not an easy thing. And therefore, it's a part of the transition experience that has to be planned from before. Okay, I have the capacity to put up 6 more channels. Can I actually turn on the 6 at the same time, or am I going to have to do it gradually? And if I'm doing it gradually, how do I intend to get this content? What would it look like? I'm going to have to stimulate independent production. And what does that look like? And I think it's just a great opportunity to create more jobs right across the region, because this need for content is going to be, you're not really going to be able to satisfy it unless you actually have a plan. The other thing that is really important to what this brings to the region, Kurleigh spoke a little bit about it, emergency alerting for the region is a big deal. But there is this passive feature that the network has, which is called datacast. And it's the ability to move data around on the over-the-air broadcast system that people will be able to access. And it's not coming through a stream. So it is almost, let's think about it as content on demand. And what that brings to the table for us is different ways to do education, different ways to communicate in health centers and hospitals, different ways to send content to your prisons for prisoners. These are all test cases that use cases that exist currently in North America. And those are opportunities that, in my opinion, the Caribbean is going to find other ways to use data casting apart from those use cases. And again, that is going to create new opportunities, because anything that is talking about material moving around this network is material that is going to have to be created. It's stuff that's going to have to be shot, stuff that's going to have to be edited, it's stuff that you're going to have resources to put this stuff together. And I think if we begin to understand how it can stimulate different types of employment and put the things in place to facilitate that and foster that, we're going to see the birth of a different kind of industry right across the region.
Thank you for that. I want us to kind of change gears just slightly, and in a short while we'll open the phone lines and we'll welcome our viewers to participate as well. How can we prepare our viewers, our customers? What should we do next? What should the average Joe like myself, after hearing all the good news, what's my next step?
Let me start off by saying at this time, your next step perhaps is just to research. You know, I mean, we have planted the seed today. It's not quite available for public consumption, for public reception as yet. So you don't have to buy anything at this time. You know, if it is, you find yourself in that unfortunate position where your current television has gone bad and you have to buy something new, you can use the opportunity to shop around to see, hey, would it make sense to buy a ATSC 3.0 capable television, or do I just buy a standard television? You know, an existing current television that does not support ATSC 3. In those circumstances, so for those who fall in that bracket, my father is one, his living room TV needs a replacement. You know, one of the things that, you know, if you're in that bracket, you have to consider is that, hey, do I buy ATSC 3 capable TV or not? Now, I have to, before I leave that point, I do have to make something clear for viewers who may be watching this program tonight on cable TV. If you're a cable TV consumer, a subscriber, this does not impact you. I want to be that clear. So I don't want persons at home, they have their cable TV, they have service from, you know, Digicel, Flow, Amplia, whomever, and they're saying, boy, do I have to go and change my TV? I have to get a second set-top box? No, no, no. If you're a subscriber of cable TV, this transition to digital terrestrial television will not impact you. So I have to make that absolutely clear for the viewers. However, if you're a free-to-air television consumer, right, and we have them, I mean, we get them, you know, when they have little complaints, they call us a TAT, so we know they're out there. And we also did a survey a few years ago, and from that survey, we estimate there are well over 100,000 homes still consume free-to-air television. So for those homes, those 100,000 homes that the survey tells us still have free-to-air television, those consumers who, when they have signal reception issues, they call us to say that this particular channel not showing well. For those homes, for now, it's just about educating yourself. If you're in a position where you need to change your TV, you could consider going with an ATSC 3 cable TV or not. But once this service has become available, that's when you have to now start planning your transition. So if you still have a normal TV, your normal TV is still fine. You just have to now go and shop for a set-top box, which you can use to connect to your existing antenna and plug into your current TV. and you will still continue to watch your free-to-air television services. So it's really just about preparing what consumers could look forward to once they've gone to digital. And this is something I think Claire talked about it, where a standard digital channel could carry like up to 6 HD channels or so, but they could mix and match. One of the things we've been able to showcase on the current trial we've set up in Port of Spain is we have some HD channels. So we have all 4 current local channels on HD available on air, but we've even added audio channels. So some of the radio stations we've put on air. So now the value proposition of free-to-air is not just the 3 or 4 television stations that you currently get on air. You can get in standard definition. Now in digital, you will get your 4 current channels in HD, so better quality, with your programming guide. If you have internet, Nicholas talked about video on demand. If the broadcaster is offering video on demand, you can now access video on demand features on your current broadcasters. And by the way, for those free-to-air broadcasters that have radio station affiliates, if they put that on the signal distributor as well, you will be able to access that. So the whole value proposition of free-to-air reception will be improved as we embark upon this digital journey. But to answer your question, for the consumer at home, look around, be prepared, and await the word that the signal is available. And once it becomes available, you equip yourself with the right equipment.
Nicholas, I know you're going to come in there, but let me just invite our viewers to call in. We'll get the number up on the screen, and we will interrupt ourselves once we have a viewer in the queue. Nicholas.
So I have a question for Roll. So what the consumer cares about is how much will it cost me to switch to a television that is ATSC3 ready? And we know from our preliminary assessments in the market that it costs a little bit more, about 10 to 11% more. So the question I would have is there something that we can do to help the adoption by perhaps looking at the duty structure or requesting some sort of concession on the duty structure to bring it down so that it becomes as expensive as, or as cheap as a normal television, a normal smart television.
Yes.
So what are the possibilities there?
So Kurleigh, you're back on the spot.
No, it's a very fair question, Nicholas. Thanks for that. And I'm happy to say that conversation has already started. So I mentioned we have a number of working groups that are in train. So our finance working group, which is led by my very capable colleague, Kevin Gould too, they have already started that deliberation, that assessment, and prepared some proposals in that regard. So, I mentioned that we're working with a number of stakeholders. So we're working with various, government agencies. So that discussion about, is there opportunity to provide a short-term concession, that discussion has started, I should say. It hasn't been fully approved, granted as yet, but that discussion is ongoing. So we hope that once the technology is available, we are hopeful that there's some sort of consideration can be given. It may not be indefinite, but it will be for a time to at least get the transition going. Yes, correct. Another similar discussion that has started under our finance working group, again, to sort of aid the transition, has been how can we support the financially vulnerable? So if there are financially vulnerable households, and we're working with the relevant, government agency, again, in that regard, if there are homes that, are already, seeking support from the government to meet their daily needs, how can we assist them with this transition? We can't burden those folks with this transition, to have to fund it themselves. So we are, again, engaging the relevant government agencies, and we're pleased to say we have the support both from our board and from our ministry to assist in supporting the financially vulnerable through this transition. So those discussions have already begun. One, supporting the financially vulnerable, and two, if any considerations can be given to equipment, whether televisions or set-top boxes, for a short period of time to get the transition going.
Great news indeed. You can join the discussion by calling 623-5227. That number again, 623-5227, and you'll be patched in live into our discussion here in studio. Dr. Grant, have we had similar considerations in other jurisdictions in terms of support for the financially vulnerable?
Yes, that I would say is a consistent conversation and need, and it has been so across the world in terms of digital transitioning. The fact that you want to ensure that your most vulnerable are not left behind, if only because we need to also appreciate that for the most vulnerable, free-to-air TV is super critical, because that's how they are communicated with, that's how they're going to get basic information. So right across the region, similar conversations or similar thoughts to what Kurleigh has spoken about, they're all in train, because everybody appreciates that you can't expect the most vulnerable to be able to do an investment that's going to bring them up to speed. So whether it is going to be that there's going to be some sort of support for the actual acquisition of the box, whether there is going to be some sort of tax relief for people who are selling the boxes, yes, this is a common thread of conversation for the digital switchover.
I did promise that we would interrupt ourselves if we have callers online, and we do have a caller. Caller, welcome. Caller, are you there? Yes. Yes, listen to us on the phone and not on your set, but you're live with us. Welcome.
Yes, good night. Thanks for having me. Firstly, I want to deal with what is present. One of your panelists mentioned that that surveys were done and that they have up-to-date statistic that there are at least 100,000 either individuals or homes that still look at solely at free-to-air TV. And my experience has been over the years, up to now, that when you travel into the rural areas of this Twin Island state, you lose so long as you move away from the city, the boroughs, and the cities, you begin to lose signal for radio, and we have over 30-something radio stations, and you get to, like, if you go beyond La Brea, San Fernando, you start getting drop-off. If you go to people's homes in those areas, they can barely pick up a proper signal for your station, CNC3, TV6, TTT, you name it. Okay, so I'm dealing with the issues that exist at present, that over the past 20 years we have taken so long to improve, to address. If you want to go to Toko for the weekend, before you can get to Matura, you have lost radio signals and people there can't see TV. Okay, so I would like you to address the viewing and listening audience tonight and tell us, how is the introduction of digital free-to-air transmission is going to make the whole country, Trinidad and Tobago, be able to receive radio and TV free-to-air more efficiently and effectively?
Thank you so much for that. Believe it or not, we have roughly about 5-6 minutes left, so let's address his concerns immediately.
Sure. So one of the benefits of the transition to digital, the path that Trinidad and Tobago is taking is we are engaging upon a collaborative journey where the broadcasters will be sharing infrastructure to broadcast. So what that means is that the ability to attain coverage in the rural areas will be more viable. So whereas in the current analog world, each broadcaster would have to construct their own transmitter to get to rural areas. So therefore, the viability to serve rural areas becomes a lot more challenging. With the capabilities of digital to carry multiple stations using a single transmitter, it makes the viability to get into rural areas a lot more financially possible. So, and actually, you know, earlier in the program, you challenged me about the role of the regulator. And I did speak about, while we are enabling, we also have to make sure there's quality in the delivery. So this will be one of the things, as we move to digital, and we transition across the digital platform, our responsibility will now be to work with the broadcasters and the infrastructure to set up to ensure, to the caller's point, and I'm glad the caller brought it up, right? Because I guess they help in our case. When we tangle in with the industry, we will say, well, I remember the guy from CNC3 who talked about he ain't getting signal in Library and Toko. So this, fuels the fire that we will be having on the broadcast industry to say, okay, listen, we've supported you, we've helped you to get to the digital technology. Now that you're on this digital technology where you're sharing transmitters, sharing infrastructure, we want to see the quality improve in the rural areas. Another big benefit would be just the very nature of digital technology. The receivers, they're a lot more resilient. So whereas with analog, with a weak signal, there's very little you could do. Whatever the signals receive, that's what the television will show. With digital, once there's a minimal acceptable signal received at the receiver, there's enough, error correction built into digital technology where it can reconstruct the signal and show. So these are some of the benefits we're looking forward to as we move to digital. I mean, I don't know if Gideon wants to add anything to that or...
I would say you covered most of the points I would have spoken to.
Okay.
And you are right in terms of the analog configuration with the multi-frequency networks with each broadcaster. So there are some limitations there. But as Kurleigh rightfully mentioned, the technology of digital with the correction. So if the signal isn't as strong when it reaches the point of being received, it can correct itself. So there are benefits in the digital landscape as well.
We're perilously close to the top of the hour and getting set to wrap up this edition, the 38th ICT Open Forum. Nicholas, I want you to just give some advice, some advice to the creatives. Have a conversation with them, albeit a brief one, about the opportunities available with this change in our ecosystem.
I think it will be an interesting platform that the broadcasters need to open up to the creatives. It's not just about the creatives. I think it's collaboration. I think now that you're going to have the ability to, once again, I'm going to say it again, get the data, you get to open up and see what's available to the public and what they want. So the broadcasters perhaps need to look at what they're doing, utilizing that data, get the creatives to think, well, beyond just the phone. The big screen is a hell of a thing. I mean, I remember back when I was growing up, sitting at the foot of my parents' bed watching MacGyver and what's the other program? Knight Rider. Nothing brought the family together like a television program.
Really aging yourself.
Yeah, I mean, this is my memories, right?
Yes.
Now, I don't know if they're going to have the same memories because everybody's on their individual device. And it's an important piece to your upbringing. So bringing the family together, can that be created again? And do creators have things that they want to bring to the big screen? Who can pull that family together again?
I want to bring Dr. Grant in. Dr. Grant, we have just about a minute for you. So you're going to merge your closing remarks with us as well. Tell us about that value to the customer. Let's reinforce that value to the customer.
Well, as I said, the key thing, one, free, right? So you're going to be able to get more channels for free. You're getting a better quality in terms of video. You're getting a better quality in terms of audio. We haven't gone into the fact that there is an interactivity possibility, especially for the people who are on cable that have internet. There will be things that you'll be able to do. And if the broadcasters are smart, they can have an engagement with the viewer that is very different from anything they would have done before. There are also going to be other services that are possible that once the broadcaster avails themselves of understanding what they can give, it's going to become very different. Content, right across any market, relevant content is what matters. And with the opportunities that are going to be created with more real estate, I am really interested to see, as Nicholas has indicated, the type of collaboration that the broadcasters will facilitate with independent production to create more for the viewers, and the viewers are going to win. they're always going to be on the winning side because you're trying to access them for advertisers.
Thank you so much. My friends, this is where we get set to wrap up. I want to begin by thanking everyone on the panel, Nicholas, Gideon, Kurleigh, out of Jamaica via our online platform, Dr. Grant. I want to say a special thank you to you as well. You have always been willing to share your experiences with us, and for that we are extremely grateful. It's very important that we don't wrap this up and just go away. We've heard the regulator saying, hold on, don't panic, do your research. The technical side of things, we are ready, but we just have to be prepared to embrace the future of television. A lot to unpack, so I would urge you, please visit the website of the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. And once again, I say thank you. We'll keep the conversation going as we get ready for the future of television. Good evening.